I have a profound appreciation for animation in the fandom. The animation made by fan animators to share their inspirations, their ideas, and talents. Aesthetics that in turn inspire other artists, writers, reviewers, and dare I say even analysts alike. Among those animators, I have a healthy appreciation for one Crown Prince, for their work. But respect aside, I want to talk about a particular piece. Is It Real? It's an animated music video, and why it only managed to nab about 38,000 views. It's been out since August 3rd, 2018. I've had my eye on this piece for some time. Don't worry. I promise once we get past the initial criticism, there'll be some fun and as well as some insight for everyone who chose to come along. My first critique for Is It Real? Sadly, whenever a content creator needs to ask themselves when making a piece of media, who is this aimed at? Again, full respect. Naturally, I was happy to come along for that ride because I appreciate the content creator, the animator. If you're a huge Crown Prince fan and you enjoyed seeing the artist's work, I have little doubt, like myself, you're going to enjoy yourself throughout this video for something that's just south of 5 minutes. From a brony, MLP, or even a fantasy standpoint, part of the hook of such a genre is its immersion. I'm going to grab some direct comparisons to other fan animations from other fan animators. This is StormXF3. He does these videos where he splices a pony character to interact with himself or some other real-life scene and makes short clips and puts them up on his channel. You may know him for his My Little Dashie animation. He has 254,000 subscribers. With the exception of 3 videos, he has always been able to successfully blow past his sub-to-view average, with his most recent video coming in at well over 500,000 views. Not bad for a dying fandom. So why is StormXF3 successful? One could argue from a cynical standpoint that seeing ponies doing cute mimi things as opposed to having an animation that's trying to convey a deeper meaning is just more appealing to the masses. Alternatively, and I remind my audience I have nothing but the utmost respect for Crown Prince. No, I'm not so daft to think that Crown has to take insight from someone as lowly as me. All that said, simple or not, I'm not an animator. I can't tell you how much work this takes or doesn't take. But this encourages the viewer to fantasize, whether you give yourself over to the fantasy of MLP escapism or the overall inclusive nature of brony. Then yes, you can be part of this overall experience that StormXF3 doesn't just check all the brony check marks, but even if you're not a diehard brony, and you are the most casual of people just floating through, clicking around, and you've never seen one of these videos before, it certainly is a curiosity to see the work for the first time. Alternatively, Is It Real? Shows its big shocking moment, sadly, in 2018 that despite no matter how much we give ourselves over to this MLP brony fantasy, we're going to have to snap back to reality. Later rather than sooner, in this case. Now, if you're a diehard Crown Prince fan, not unlike myself, it's very tempting to simply say, it would appear Crown Prince was just a little too smart for the room. Perhaps a little too avant-garde of telling bronies to snap out of it. Or at least even suggest, hey, this is a possibility you're going to have to face down, and this is my punch in the feels to you guys. And I could respect the hell out of that. Hell, I've commissioned Crown Prince to make an animation that was released back in September 1st, 2015, where I tried to tug on brony's heartstrings to see one of its own hardcore fans formally, and how he had the realization that he just wasn't enjoying being there anymore. Both of these pieces suffer from the same issue. Who is going to see and enjoy this video? Now granted, Crown's silent protagonist in Is It Real is less likely to have a visceral backlash. As one might assume, he's supposed to be an everyman for every brony who may have gotten caught up in the brony adventure, and as the video suggests, snaps back to reality. The first and big problem with this is a one and done watch. Assuming you're an avid Crown Prince fan and you agree with the message, why would you ever go back and view the video more than once? If you're the kind of brony or ex-brony who is either on the path or already there to heading out the door, you're likely going to pass on this video altogether. If you're a hardcore brony who isn't a die-hard Crown Prince fan, you're unlikely to have shared this video. The second big problem with Is It Real? It's counting on the big emotional gut punch of, I'm subverting the fantasy. I'm telling you, fuckle chucks, that this pony fantasy isn't all that it's cracked up to be, or at least something along those lines. The biggest problem with that, besides bronies who are still around and aren't likely to listen to this message, MLP FIM already does that. Hell, back in September 8th, 2015, I did a video called Top 10 Worst Episodes That You Wouldn't Want to Live in MLP FIM. Now, I have no doubt that a lot of fans do miss the fact that Equestria isn't a magical candy land of happiness. That's the hook of the show. The gut punch of the show is that friends do get on your last nerve. If you have social anxiety, and you find yourself identifying with one of the main 6 characters or otherwise, even if you could go to Equestria, all your problems would still be there ready and waiting for you. Now, if you want to be really nerdy, oh, what if I had all the scripts and I knew everything that was going to happen ahead of all time? I would know what to do. I wouldn't make those same mistakes that the characters do. Hey, if you had a script for the real world, you would know what to do. If you knew that you were going to oversleep one day, if you knew that you were going to give the wrong advice to a friend or a loved one that day, if you knew that you were going to drive someone up the wall, you might avoid them. I think many people are able to watch the show and basically going, well, if I only had the map. Well, if you had a map to life and a cheat sheet to check off, everything would be just as fine there too. I've been a part of the Bernie fandom long enough where even if you're surrounded by the best people and the best of friends, it's not an invincible shield when this shit hits the fan. Don't get me wrong, it helps. Sometimes, like on the show, it's not always a boon. Well-intentioned friends can be as big a problem as enemies when they're trying to help. And if your response back is, well, FNGR, maybe your friends are like that. Well, when my friends are at their worst, one of the biggest insults I can have is to compare them to, say, a rarity. That's the big oof insult in my server. Bronies can be very, very, very tiring in addition to fun. It's a balancing act. It's one of the best and worst feelings I've had being around you guys. And if you haven't figured that out by now, you're not paying attention. But yeah, is it real? Isn't saying anything profound. It's not inspiring people to create, and there are better wake-up calls on the show proper, with all due respect. Now let's get to that fun, insightful part I promised. This is The Moon Rising, done by duo Cartoonist. The song was made by Ponyphonic. This version is done by EileMonty. Links all down below. I'm going to be playing some clips here.
Now the hour has come at last, the soft and fading light has crossed the west horizon and has bidden us good night. And what a lovely night it is to walk a moonlit field, to see the softer shades that are by starlight now revealed. So why is it that now, when all is quiet and at rest, when candles glow and all the world is at its very best, the ponies of Equestria should lock themselves away to shun the moon and wait instead for Sister's sunny day?
I got a bit carried away with that refrain, but it's a favorite of mine. This video, back in November 8th, 2016, cracked 15 million views plus. Besides the breathtaking visuals and being bombarded with one of the better musical scores in the fandom, this is an artistic delight. What this piece manages to do is to take a fan favorite character, Princess Luna, a character criminally underdeveloped, something fans are yearning to hear more about. It looks at the source material, and the animator and the vocalists come together to say, hold my beer. If you like the show's Princess Luna, if that can get your emotions flowing, if that gets your creativity running wild, you haven't seen shit yet.
Am I so wrong to wish that they
I get chills, legit chills, and a rush of emotion every time I hear the high note about Luna standing her ground. A good villain will help you understand what they do. And in this musical piece, as these acoustics continue to build and rise and allow the audience member to become increasingly enthralled, having their attention seized, absorbed, and led to an overall engrossing experience, a great villain will erase any doubt from your mind that they could possibly be wrong. I want my fair shake. Everything I've worked for, everything I've done, is just as good as those more successful than I. Oh, you better believe that resonated with all the second and third and fourth place finishers in the fandom. In the land of misfit toys, Luna isn't just queen, she's god to bronies. Pro tip for any animator out there: if you want to have the easiest idea to subvert Luna, include a reason in your animation that Luna wasn't misunderstood or underappreciated, that she wasn't this thing overlooked for her brilliance. Hint or directly allude to in your piece that perhaps Luna was a labor to Celestia to carry, who broke under the building strain of her sister's special needs. Aside to Luna fans, that's not really what I think of Luna. I do believe that Celestia is a dullard, the errant ruler. This one shot of Celestia just sleeping, neglectful, while Luna is literally coming undone. This is every Luna fantasy ever come to life.
The wonders of my dark and jeweled sky, when all the world is wrapped in an eternal lullaby. So say goodnight at this, the final setting of the sun. Tomorrow dawns in darkness, the night time has begun.
Imagine, dare to suggest that Luna could be the part of ourselves that isn't sorry because she did something terrible, but because she lost. Suggest and imagine that maybe Luna didn't want a fair shake. Maybe she wanted more. After all, do we really know if Luna was slighted back in the day? Was she really ignored? Was she really underappreciated? Or maybe that's Celestia's guilt, letting her believe that's how it went down. You can call that a terrible interpretation, and there's certainly several to be had from pieces like these. But that's why The Moon Rises is massively successful, in addition to being amazing to look at. If you turn your brain off in that first watch, there's more reason to come back to it later. Do you notice the whole animation takes place in just the castle? Now this could be just me, but is it really that hard to fill in the blanks that everything that's missing? This feels like a full world despite it literally being in only one place. It should feel claustrophobic, but it feels massive. And that's what inspiring your audience to think can do for you. In Is It Real? It gives the audience a much more linear path. Nowhere in the animation does it feel important. Perhaps minus the shelves. Instead of really changing to something else, the shelves, as they get deplenished, become more and more empty. It's kind of a poor message that if you give up Brony, that nothing will be there to even remotely fill your void. But that could just be my novice level of understanding of the piece. Let's do one more animation before we call it a day. Lullaby for a Princess.
Cruel and order unkind, how can I have sent you away? The blame was my own, the punishment yours, the harmony silent today. But into the stillness I'll bring you a song, and I will your company keep. To your tired eyes and my lullabies, I've carried you softly to sleep.
Lullaby for a Princess, much like Moon Rises, just has the right exclamation of many of the song lines. We see a familiar character, and we get to see something not offered anywhere else. real heartache and emotional burden that reaches beyond what you'd see on any animation on TV. This is something I think you'd be hard-pressed to be able to grab at someone's heartstrings and pull on an otherwise vacant blank canvas, such as Princess Celestia. In contrast to the backdrop of the song, she is a single beacon of light in a world mired in darkness. And this is the beginning to this brief tale, which nonetheless feels massive due to the ability to convey emotion onto the audience. Everything in this feels real. It calls upon the audience to fill in the gaps not shown. Everything in Is It Real calls upon the audience to fill in the gaps. But not just for the main protagonist, but literally everything on screen. If you've ever played a game, like say Chrono Trigger, you know one of the biggest problems or critiques is the silent protagonist. Now imagine if that was the whole cast. I have a vague idea of the personality for the people in Is It Real. I might as well be looking at hieroglyphics and trying to get a feel for the people in those drawings. Naturally, you can, if you put enough mental effort to put names and backstories to the characters that are on screen before you. But the woke message of deal with the real world isn't just counterintuitive to MLP and Brony, it's self-defeating to more than a fair amount of YouTube.
Once did a pony who shone like the sun look out on her kingdom inside. She smiled and said, surely there is no pony so lovely and so well beloved as I. So great was her reign and so brilliant her glory that long was the shadow she cast, which fell dark upon the young sister she loved, and grew only darker as days and nights passed.
There is one thing in common both these pieces really share: the theme of loss. In Is It Real, not being able to enjoy the simple things of those friends around us doing simple things. There are some amazing moments I can personally remember of my friends past and present. They can easily be the equal of immersing myself in a fantasy setting. Hell, I'm at a point where I do prefer interacting with people than watching a fantasy TV show or a movie. Maybe it's because I'm an attention whore. What falls flat in Is It Real is that there isn't a single memorable moment. When it cuts away to the real world, there isn't a sense of duty or pressing urgency or an exact moment that makes our John Doe, oh wait, being told off by one more fill-in-the-blank, interchangeable, nameless character, reminding John Doe of all his other John Doe friends that he's been neglecting. That should be a huge woke moment. We've all had those moments where we've overlooked friends and family, and those have been real special uh-oh moments. With as little as what's shown here, Is It Real could have probably have gotten the same amount of investment by just throwing a still frame. If your best friends or family or whoever were interchangeable nobodies, they might as well be acquaintances. And those moments I talked about a second ago would have zero impact. Conversely, Celestia is noticing her relationship with her sister is slipping away through her fingers, like it's not just something that she looked up one day and it was too late. There's more of an emotional, consistent grab with reoccurring themes in Lullaby for a princess, characters flashing back and forth and feeling invested than anything that you see in Is It Real. And while Lullaby for a princess does have this lamenting, dour tone, love it by the way, you as the audience can choose to put yourself in Celestia's shoes, and you can choose to make the message personal. Whereas in Is It Real, this is supposed to be you if you've ever been someone who's gotten too wrapped up in the fandom. Again, I could be wrong. I mean, walking by and ignoring a friend. This is 7 seconds. I'm told a walk cycle is murder, and you could have literally conveyed the same effect with a still image here, and not even bother with the animation.
Soon did that pony take notice that others did not give her sister her due, and neither had she loved her as she deserved. She watched as her
Now, ignoring the fact, we all know Luna and Celestia in the end, not in the video obviously, where everything turns out alright. In these moments, nothing could be more further from the truth. In that moment where you screwed up with a friend or a loved one, unless your head's way up there, we all know that we've dropped the ball. It gets even more intense for the times we didn't get a chance to set things right. We can take the next scene as a metaphor for one such disaster.
Moon princess, good night, sister mine. Rest now in moonlight's embrace. Bear up my lullaby, winds of the earth, through cloud and through sky and through space. Carry the peace and the coolness of night, and carry my sorrow in kind. Luna, your love so much more than you know. May troubles be far from your mind.
As we see the blazes and flares, the glares and glows, the illumination and incandescent clashes of Luna and Celestia colliding and clashing, the radiance of Celestia and Nightmare Moon's umbra and gloom accentuated with every note, every step of the way, I feel moved. My first reaction to each and every time that you see, hear, or feel that scene, my first very response is, one more time. I want to stay in that emotional rush. I want to feel the rush and the well of feelings as my mind races to keep up with that. I want to feel the rush and well of feelings that my mind raced to keep up with that, of what I just felt and saw. But no, seriously, do you see the look on Luna's face as she just loses it? The misplacement of Luna's frustration and rage can no longer be disarmed or hindered. Can't you just imagine, what if she wasn't just being ignored? What if this was all just ambition? What if this was someone who saw a moment and seized on it? Let me propose an interesting question for you. Say Luna was younger. Let's say if Luna's younger self could see this heightened sense of madness before her, do you think that she would pull back? Or would her first words be, "Do you mean I can be just like you?" If Luna could speak to Nightmare Moon. Surely we've all known when you're facing down someone else's rage, when you've just wanted to let someone know you're sorry. I know I've had people I know I care about, people I hold value in, and there are those I'm willing to give way more than a second, third, or even fourth shake. Sometimes it's because I know I've dropped the ball, or you could easily have seen this happening to one's own self. Along with the musical score, the visuals, the seamless flow between the clashes and the transitions and scenes. In Lullaby for a Princess, you can go back to the clashings of light as if the two sisters were two fireflies dueling in the distance, whereas there's this sad sack on the couch. I suppose that transformation scene of the changeling to the new one is inspired ? But if that's your biggest spectacle, congrats, you're basically saying that ex-bronies turn into, what, fairies? Really ugly, aesthetically dead-looking ones that look like they wandered off the scene of a Steven Universe episode. Yeah, no thanks.
And forgive me for being so blind.
Is anyone else hearing this? This song, right here, speaks way more to the idea of leaving the fandom than anything in Is It Real? That's the real emotional kick in the teeth. The character that bronies might have something in common with here is Celestia. No matter how successful you are, you might be able to look back one day and look back at your own mistakes and everything that went wrong and everyone you left behind as your own series of Princess Lunas. Lullaby for a Princess is a more welcoming, inclusive experience as opposed to the linear fantasy and storytelling of Is It Real? Lullaby allows you to frame it in all kinds of metaphors and interpretations. Again, I'm not suggesting that any one line of thinking is the intent of the writer. All I'm giving you is an off-the-cuff, hey, this piece can be taken in many wild and innovative ways that encourage discussion. Lullaby for a Princess, which feels like a classic because its animation and sound and story are all deliberate, that there is nothing that is wasted, and hell, I'm not even a Celestia fan. Nothing is a labor or a chore to get through. And as a fan, while I enjoy The Moon Rises, there's a few add-ins to the song that feel more shoehorned in. Aesthetic choices. Again, I'm not saying my opinions are greater than the animators. Lullaby for a Princess's tone never sounds discordant or skewed. Conversely, Is This Real feels like a bad pop song. I'd call it a bad animated video, like Take On Me, but that's an insult, with all due respect. I cared more about what happened to that black and white character from that video than anything that I saw in Is This Real? Hell, the character from Take On Me had more at stake than John Doe's character had in Is It Real? How bad do you have to gutter bowl when you can't invoke more feels in a video from the 1980s? You heard me.
Swiftly pass, I pray. I love you, I miss you, all these miles away.
Look, I understand that sometimes having a content creator crate is its own reward. Again, I'm not suggesting I'll ever be a tenth as talented as Crown Prince in any way, shape, or form. Hell, if Crown Prince did drama, I'm sure they'd do a better job than I could. But considering that time is an all-time precious commodity, successful content creators have to weigh successful projects to unsuccessful ones as life gets busier. Being able to really enjoy the fruits of your labor, I imagine your free time gets more and more precious. But hey, if you think of a single fanfiction or art piece or any kind of inspiration anyone ever got from Is It Real, comment down below. Don't feel bad, Prince. Even Hasbro couldn't get ponies to humans right. What do you think Equestria Girls was? Thank you for your time. Naturally, I encourage you to go subscribe Crown Prince for their analysis series, Scribble Kibble. I'll include a link to their channel as well as their Patreon down below.